Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the agenda of this regular meeting of Freeport City Council, Monday, April 15th, 2024 at 6 p.m. I would declare that there is a quorum present, that all notices have been legally posted pursuant to the Opens Meeting Act, and I will now call this meeting to order. If you will please rise for the invocation led by our city manager and the pledges of allegiance.
Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, we have citizen comments, and we have a few of them tonight. The first person is Miss Nicole Morales. Yep, every time, Nicole.
See, now I'm going to talk to you. No, hello, Nicole Mireles. I live in Freeport, 2002 North Avenue, G. What I'm here is I just want to give kudos to the Freeport Police Department. See, isn't that nice?
It's nice.
I know. Especially Corporal Torres. I'm sure y'all saw it on Facebook where he jumped in over there in Surfside because they needed assistance, and he helped save a life over there. And I love the picture that they posted on there. He had his socks on. He's all wet. He's at his police car. I think that was beautiful. The other thing I want to say is to a lot of the audiences, if you haven't taken the Citizen Police Academy here in Freeport, you need to. That is something that is worth your while. I have learned so much stuff. I'd taken it before, but I had to be retrained. So I'm taking it now, and I'm like a kid. I don't want to miss any of my classes. And I give kudos to Chief. Thank you so much. You know, she lets the police officers do their own presentation, and they're very involved. She just sits back and she don't bother them, and a lot of knowledge. So I really, really recommend whoever hasn't, or if it's been a while since you've gone, I really think that you guys should consider taking it. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Melanie Oldham.
Hello, good evening. Melanie Oldham, 1206 West Broad here in Freeport. I wanted to give out an invitation. I'm with a group called Better Brazoria Clean Air, Water, and Government, and we became a nonprofit last year, and we have a board and membership, and we are encouraging people, for one thing, to get out and attend their city council meetings, school board meetings, commissioner meetings, and then come together and discuss issues. We are having a candidate forum here in Freeport on April 27th. And it will be at the First United Missionary Baptist Church. And it'll be from just 10 to 12, just 2 hours. And that's the same day that the River Fest gets going in the afternoon. But somebody that helped me send out the invitations, we had a little mix-up on getting the right church and the time, but we resended them. And there is, 6 candidates. And we would really appreciate all 6 trying hard to attend. It's kind of our only chance to hear from you. It will be moderated by Miss Juanita Crane. There'll be no debate, discussion, any of that between the candidates, but basically for them to tell us briefly, who they are, what their platform is, and give people a chance to hear from them. It will be where anybody that comes can write questions as they come in on index cards, and then the moderator will pick out maybe 5 or so questions, whatever there's time for. But if all the candidates could make time just for 2 hours to come on April 27th from 10 to 12 o'clock, and that'll be at the First United Missionary Baptist Church on South Avenue G. So this is a formal invitation to all candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Sam Rena?
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Sam Reina, and I reside at 2002 North Avenue G. We need better transparency when awarding contracts to companies that will supply any and all types of services to the city. We need a paper trail that will document the decision makers' conflict of interest and how they select the most qualified bidder. We need to design, develop, and centralize the contract process. Maybe some written policies for selecting vendors and retain those documentations. Maybe using a standardized conflict of interest forms and retain records of those documentations. There is a lot of misconception out there about how AmeriWaste and Cabarrubias got selected. Cabarrubias was low bidder, but was he the most qualified? According to what happened recently, I don't think so. AmeriWaste was the only vendor that submitted a bid, according to hearsays. Even if they were the only company to submit a bid, why award them a 7-year contract agreement? Agree to a 3-year contract. If they perform according to the contract agreement, retain them. If not, use another vendor. Read the AmeriWaste contract agreement, and you decide if they have breached the contract. If you decide that they have, give them a 30, that they have not, give them a 30-day notice to comply. If they don't comply, contract another vendor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Thomas Pearson?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thomas Pearson, 110 South Front Street. I just had a comment about, we have a city councilman that's always curious about things. Well, I'm curious why he's always late for council meetings. Even if he's in the building, he still is late. I'm curious to know if he doesn't believe in the pledge to the United States flag, the flag to the Texas flag, or doesn't believe in the good Lord up above and don't want to participate in prayer. I'm just curious if he would explain his reason for being late all the time.
I'm happy to explain, Mayor, if you.
Excuse me, sir. No, sir. There's no response yet.
Okay, well, I'm happy to.
Okay, thank you. You can do it after the meeting.
You can reach me
sir.
after the meeting if that question is that important.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
His being late is not good for the citizen comments, since some of these comments concern him. I'm curious why Freeport Council does not address this issue. How about a roll call like some other cities? If you're not present when the council meeting starts, you don't get to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that, we'll get into the presentations and, we'll get into the consent agenda. We're going to pass number 1. The folks that are, that will receive the presentation of employees are working tonight, today, so we won't see them. So we'll go to the consent agenda, which we have two items. Number 2, consideration of possible action on approval of city council meeting minutes from April 1st, 2024, and consideration and possible action approving to accept the resignation by Jack Bowman from the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Kane. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
We have a second from Councilman Adam Morris. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so we have a 3-1. Councilman Pena is a nay. Council business regular session, item number 4, public hearing to discuss and take action regarding request for replat of Lot 4 of Coastal County River Estates, a 6-lot and 1 reserved subdivision of 33.389 acres composed of Lot 4 of the Coastal County Rivers Estate and a 15.187 reserved tract of the Coastal County Reserve Estates recorded in the county clerk's file 2022054916 of the Missouri County Plat Record situated in the Sterling McNeil League Abstract 94, City of Freeport, Missouri County, Texas. I will now, it is 6:12, I will open a public hearing. You have the floor, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, council.
Good evening.
So this item was brought before Planning and Zoning Commission on March 26, 2024, and it was approved with a 5-0 vote. Mr. Hawkins does give his regards. He did actually have a family emergency tonight, so he wasn't able to make it. So,
No, I'm sorry. You're going to have to say all that again because I didn't hear you. You were talking
I'm
fast
sorry.
and low.
yeah, sorry. So Mr. Hawkins does send his regards. So he was going to be here tonight, but he did have an emergency, so he wanted me to speak on his behalf.
Okay?
Mr. Hawkins is requesting a replat of this, of his subdivision into multiple single-family lots for his family and friends. As in terms of the plats that he had on record, he was going to be doing it through 4A through 4D, and 4E and 4F. So a staff recommendation is to approve the replat. There is no financial impact on our part, and the property is located in the City of Freeport ETJ.
And there are no liens or anything on the property?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, open it up for public discussion. Council, members of the public, this is your time to shine. Okay, hearing none, I will now close the public hearing at 6:14. And I will call for a motion to take action regarding request for replat. Or I tell you what, I'll make the motion to replat, and I'm looking for a second.
I'll second your motion, Mayor.
All right, I have a second from Councilman Adam Morris. Any further discussion needed?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, ma'am. I'm sorry, what was your name again? I'm sorry.
My name is Shelby Arujo.
Thank you, Shelby.
Sure.
Ms. Rizzo. On this particular property here, is this owned by who exactly?
It's owned by Stephen Hawkins.
Stephen Hawkins. And is he here tonight?
No, sir, he had an emergency.
All right. And he owns the property outright?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm multitasking up here. Sorry for that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carried 4-0 unanimously. Thank you. Item number 5, consideration, thank you, ma'am. Item number 5 is consideration of possible action approving the proposal from IAD Architects in the amount of $39,817 for professional architectural and engineering services to design and produce construction contract documents for the renovations of the Pixie Heritage House. We have one citizen comment on this first. Ms. Dancy, number 5.
Good evening, everybody.
Good
Council. Pamela Dancy, South Front Street. My deal on this is that we spend so much money, and we still do not have any covers for any bus stop that we have here in Freeport. And we talk about quality of life for the citizens here, and everybody that's sitting in this room today drove here. We drive in the cold, we drive in the heat. And the people that are less fortunate, that do not have transportation, are sitting out in the cold, and they're sitting out in the heat. And some of them are sitting out in the streets because either there's not a shelter or there's not a bench for them to sit on. And I think that we're just spending money. That the Heritage House is great. It looks good on the outside. Why do we have to do something about that right now? Why don't we think about helping the lower class? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Mr. Petty?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. The Heritage House has been inoperable for a number of years. The city in the past had a renovation project completed, and shortly after that time, the building started having issues with water coming into the building that caused damage to the windows, the ceiling, and the flooring. The city has consistently budgeted $375,000 each year to make the necessary repairs. This building in the past was heavily used as a rental venue and an additional source of revenue for the city. This building is in the downtown district, and it is important not only to have an additional rental space for the public, but to preserve this building for revitalization of downtown. Staff was tasked IED architects and design to provide the city with a proposal for the renovation of the Pixie Heritage House. At council request, staff reached out to the city engineer, Kimley Horn, and they gave us some information on a different architect firm to reach out to. So we reached out to them, but they were non-responsive. Once approved, IED architect and design will be tasked to provide the required documents for advertisement. Staff will bring the proposal back to council at a later date for selection of a contractor to perform the renovations. And staff recommends proposal from IED Architect and Design. And this does include architectural and engineering services, construction contract documents, and oversight of the project.
All right, council, do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Petty?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for Mr. Petty here. I know that this was on the budget here previously for $375,000 before, but as recent as a couple of years ago, there were some additional bids taken informally that amounted to about $250,000. I actually communicated these to Mayor Bass when we were downtown at one point. And, you know, I'm just curious, number one, how did we arrive to that $375,000 back in 2018 that pushed it to be on the budget for the city? I'm wondering, did we hire an architect and an engineering firm at that time? Do we know that?
I was not part of that then, no, sir.
Do we know if it was an architectural firm, or was that number, how was that number derived, the 375? Do we know? Does anybody know?
I don't know. It's been on the budget since I've been here.
Mayor, you wouldn't happen to know, would you?
At this time, I'm trying to think.
Okay. Well, if it occurs to you, I'm all ears on that. But, you know, where I'm going with this is, I've never heard that, and I usually hear if there's any particular project that had any kind of plans or designs, or for that matter, another study. But in terms of the cost associated with the renovation and restoration of the Pixie House, that $375,000 was never tied to any formal engineer or formal architectural firm that it was going to give us that number or gave that number. So I'm led to believe that because every other project that I've seen a study or an engineering firm's stamp plans or an architectural's rendering, and I haven't seen any of that as it relates to that 375. And so I'm glad that it was allotted. I'm glad that the council at the time had enough sense to say, yeah, we got to make sure that we preserve that. What's frustrating is that, you know, no action has been taken for one reason or another. And I'm glad also that we're looking to take action too, so that we can preserve that building versus trying to demolish a lot of historical buildings that have a lot of stories about Freeport. And that said, I'm thinking, why are we trying to pursue what is it, $37,000 worth, or $39,000, $40,000 basically, $39,817, let's just say $40,000 for architectural plans and engineering plans, or for that matter, to offer an estimate that a general contractor can also do. And, you know, most general contractors will be able to assess the structural damage. They'll hire their own engineer, probably at a fraction of the cost. I know that for some of the construction projects that I've worked on, you can get an engineer to go in there, give an analysis for about $1,200. So I'm kind of shocked sticker shocked at the $40,000 here, number one. And the same thing with the designs. I'm not sure that we need any additional designs because we're just repairing what's already there. And any good carpenter can say, okay, I see what's going on here on the trim and on the wainscot. I can replicate that on the inside and the outside. So I'm just trying to make sure that we save $40,000 where we can. And so when I look at this saying, why are we going out to an engineer or an engineering firm or an architectural firm, it really makes me scratch my head as to why are we just, you know, putting out a bid for work and, or for that matter, just asking some of the local contractors who are pretty smart, some of the builders that are pretty smart, that can knock this out pretty quickly within a week and do it for free because, or even at their own cost with the hopes that they get the project. And so this $40,000 is on top of the $375, and I don't know that we even need to use the $375 because some of the bids that we had discussed, the mayor and I at the park a couple of years ago, was about $250,000. And so there's certainly enough room for making sure we get this project done, but I certainly don't want to waste $40,000 on IAD architects. And then that brings me to my second and third point. The second point is that I'm wondering why we don't, I'm not sure what the rush is all of a sudden to push for IAD to be the only lone bidder. Excuse me. The only lone bidder here when our current engineers are offering another firm. And yeah, if they're not responsive, I'm sure there are other design companies that can afford us those same designs. Again, probably at a fraction, but I'm looking back at the general contractors. But I will tell you, who was it? It was, I just got an email this afternoon from our city secretary about a hearing that we're having at River Place for the architectural renderings that EDC just purchased. And I think they purchased them for about $25,000. And what they did for $25,000, or what was the dollar amount? Mr. Matamoros may know better than I do since he was on the board here recently. You happen to know what that number was, Mr. Matamoros?
You can finish. You can finish your comment and then I'll provide that number.
Well, needless to say, we had that architectural firm there, and I believe that number was $25,000. And what they did for 8.8 acres was the design and the architectural renderings, preliminary engineering, preliminary architecture, layout, site plan. And I'm thinking, then why are we paying $40 for just one single building that's sitting on maybe a 10,000 square foot lot, not 9 acres, which is about 400,000 square feet against 10,000 square feet. So those are my concerns. And my last one is, and this is kind of a heavier handed one. You know, I'm just bringing things to bear because of what I hear from residents. And I brought things to bear on May 5th of 2023 of last year. And that's when I informed the council of concerns that were conveyed to me by residents about the contract that the city ended up engaging in with Covarrubias. And so by the same token, I can tell you that since November 16th, a lot has come out about the Covarrubias investigation, or for that matter, not the investigation, but certainly in terms of what happened publicly. And so I know that IAD was involved. And what was curious to me is that IAD provided a strong letter of recommendation for Covarrubias. And yet they weren't bonded. And there was a whole other slew of reasons that we have to scratch our head and ask questions as to why. And so I'm here saying that Covarrubias had that letter of support, that turns out that they had a hand in the post-payment process. And it behooves us as the council, I would think, to suspend their candidacy till this ongoing investigation on Covarrubias and everybody that was involved, both city employees and third parties, until that gets resolved. Now, I don't want to slow down this project, but I'm certainly very concerned that IAD is still at the table here when there's a lot of questions to be answered still on the Covarrubias project that cost our previous city manager, Tim Kelty, his job. And so those are the items I wanted to bring to bear, and I hope that the council will listen. These were items that were also brought to me by residents. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add?
Mayor, I'll just add, answering the question that was asked of me. It was $25,000 for design guidelines. It did not include engineering, whereas the way I understand this is engineering. So that's the large difference from Gensler, is $25,000 for just design only.
Mayor, I'll just add again that, if I may, that we can get an engineer through any of our GCs that we've worked with here in the city, and they can get that for probably about $1,200, $1,500. I would say $2,500 at the top, and then we save ourselves $37,500. But that all said, I'd like to make a motion that we table this until we get new bids from qualified firms, or for that matter, general contractors. Thank you.
Well, I take exception to your not qualified. I think IAD, Architects and Design, is qualified.
Well, I'm not saying they're not qualified.
Hold on a
to
second.
pr-
Wait a second, sir. You've had plenty of opportunity. Let me say my piece.
Sure.
You said not qualified, so I just wanted to say that I believe that IAD, Architects and Design, are qualified. I know that we reached out to another firm, which is fine. I mean, I find it interesting that, you know, this is exactly what you asked for. You're asking for an engineering design and an architectural design, and that's what they're providing. But I do agree with you that that there is an opportunity, I think, to go out to others, maybe outside of the Brazosport area, Lance. And so we have their bid. I'm sure it'll stay that way. But I will second the motion to table this matter, and we'll go from there. So thank you very much. Item number 6, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2853 of local government adopting the Missouri County Hazard Mitigation Plan. Hazard Mitigation Plan, Chief, sounds scary. Good evening.
Hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Presenting before you tonight the Missouri County Hazard Mitigation Plan 2023 edition. Every 5 years, roughly, we come back and present that back to mayor and council. Normally, it was authorizing the mayor to sign the document. This one's actually changing from FEMA ruling that it has to come from the cities as a resolution. Then that resolution will be, once it's put before you and if it's approved, we'll forward it to Missouri County Commissioners Court. Once all the cities have approved their part of the plan by resolution, then it'll be forwarded up to FEMA for approval. The mitigation plan spells out some the history of Missouri County incidents or disasters that have happened in Missouri County, but it also takes each city and looks at what projects or types of projects identified that we can apply for grant funding from FEMA or state level. And this document is referenced in those applications. So I'm bringing this before you for approval to sign the resolution to adopt this plan.
Thanks, sir. I will certainly make the motion that we approve resolution number 2024-2853, and I'm looking for a second.
I'll second it.
I have a second from Councilman Pena. Any further discussion needed?
I have a couple of questions, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Chief, thank you for the information here. I had a couple of questions. I guess the baseline question is in terms of passing this resolution here, does this change any budgetary costs that we've already extended for the emergency items?
Has no impact on any of the budget items that are there. It only helps with this plan when we're applying for grants to subsidize things. That we've referenced this plan, it's been recognized by everybody involved.
Perfect, appreciate it. That's all I have, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 7, consideration and possible action approving the interlocal cooperation agreement for collection of taxes and PID assessments for City of Freeport between Brazoria County and the City of Freeport.
Mayor, I'd like to introduce Ashley Ferguson to everybody. She's the Assistant Finance Director. She came over a little while back from the county, and now she's employed here with the city.
Thank you. Welcome
Nice
to
to
the
meet you.
City Council meeting.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of y'all in City Hall, but it's nice to have a name to everyone's face. I'm going to fill in for Kathy tonight for her 2 items. Brazoria County has brought forward a revised interlocal co-op agreement for collection of taxes and the PID assessment for the City of Freeport. The revisions that they sent over include the cost of collecting per parcel increasing 32 cents to 36 cents in accordance with Section 6.27 of the Texas Property Tax Code, with the review of such cost every 3 years. It also included a revision for how distributions are made to the taxing entities. They're not changing how they currently distribute them, but they are going to formalize their procedures. Another revision that came through is the T&T calculations and the designated officer, ensuring the language they use is in accordance with the Texas Property Tax Code. And the last revision was adding consent for penalty and interest waivers in the event the county waives any penalty or interest on any parcel pursuant to Texas Property Tax Code Section 33.011. The city consents to the waiver of the penalty and/or the interest on that same parcel, and hereby authorizes the county to waive the penalty and interest on behalf of the city. The city currently has an interlocal co-op agreement for the collection of taxes and PID assessments. This agreement saves the City of Freeport money. We paid $2,049.28 this fiscal year for these services, and that saves the city money by not having to hire additional staff to perform those services. The financial impact does not affect this fiscal year, but it will increase the 25 fiscal year budget by approximately $300, and the staff would recommend approving the interlocal co-op agreement with Brazoria County.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the interlocal co-op agreement between the county and the city. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second it, Mayor.
We have a second from Councilman Kane. Discussion. If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to jump from item number 8 to item number 9 first. Consideration and possible action approving to remove William Leach from the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board. Before we get to that point, though, I want to give my point of view to see maybe if that will settle this for tonight. I've been a proponent ever since I've been on council and been mayor that the individual committees ought to hear and vote amongst themselves about removal of their members. That's just the way I felt. It did not apply with Ed Garcia and Nicole Morales. I was in the minority on that, and council voted to remove, so council can certainly do so tonight. But I believe that it needs to come up and be talked about with the sitting committee as it stands, and it comes back to the if it's their desire to do so and to continue with that, then it's our decision to make as the elected office holders. So, just wanted to say that first. Does that change anybody's mind on this? Okay. Well, then we have consideration and possible action to approving to remove William Leach from the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board. Ms. Anna Silbus. Ms. Oldham, I'll get you up here in just a minute.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Anna Silbus, Main Street Coordinator. I'm here tonight to present this memo in regards to one of our board members before council for possible removal from the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board due to failure to uphold board member expectations and responsibility. Mr. William.
Anna, let me stop you real quick.
Yes,
I see
sir.
that we have two folks that wanted to speak on this first. Let me let them speak first.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Sandra Levy, you want to speak on number 9? Yes. Sorry about that. No notes. Can't have notes.
Sandra Levy, 311 West Broad, Freeport, Texas. I came here in support of Bill. As some of you may know, some of you may not know, I was involved in the very first Main Street program, and I've been a building owner down there since the late 1990s. Bill also bought property down there about the same time we did, and through the entire process of Main Street 1, not having Main Street 2, Bill has been, because of the business that he was in at the time, he was a great asset as far as giving us suggestions on what to do, talking with the people from Austin about some of our problems with infrastructure. He's been there long enough to know, like we do, like that our alley was renovated 3 times in 2 years because of one of our city council people, city managers. Like, there are issues downtown that are central to renovating, like that whole block of buildings. And the frustration that he feels sometimes is because we get new people on the board that are not only new to Main Street, but new to the issues that surround that particular downtown area. One of the things about the block that his house is in, and it was explained best by one of the architectural rendering people, I don't know what the name is for that group, but from Main Street, was that block was built very similar to a group of townhouses. And so if you take, and because of the materials that those buildings were built out of and the engineering at the time, the foundations at the time, if you take out one building, it affects the integrity of the others. We've also been here long enough to know that that improvement in infrastructure downtown is needed before we get like any influx of people or businesses down there, because we have constant problems with gas lines, we have problems with water, we have problems with water drainage coming off the alleys and flowing through our buildings. The last bad storm we had down there, the water flowed from Jeff's building through all of those buildings, because Frank and I stayed there during that storm, and you could see through the windows the water running towards Betty's building. The way those walls are built, there is seepage underneath those. And so I understand the frustration that Bill has about taking out the one building that y'all voted to demolish, or maybe EDC, I don't know who voted to do that. And perhaps, like my husband, he's not the most eloquent speaker when it comes to voicing his frustrations. But I think that the fact that he has such intense knowledge of that downtown area and of those buildings and of the structure, he is an asset to that board. And that's just my opinion. But I know that I've called him in to ask a lot of questions, and he's helped us solve a lot of problems pretty easily, just because of his knowledge.
Thank you, ma'am. Miss Denise Leach, and I always get it wrong. Am I getting it right?
No, it's Leach.
Leach.
Like the little blood cell.
Okay. All right.
Good
Leach.
evening.
Good evening.
board, councilman and lady. I just wanted to say that I'm not
Got to give your
just-
name and your address.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Denise Leach. I live at 216 West Park in Freeport, have for the last 20 years. I also worked at Intermedics right across the park on the other side for many years too, and until Intermedics closed and we moved to Angleton. But, I need 2 extra eyes, pardon me. I just want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about my husband, Bill Leach. He's a father of 3 and a grandfather of 3 girls. We have another one due next month. And again, I am very proud to be his wife. I know that because I'm his wife, it would be easy for me to say how wonderful he is and how nice he is and how great he is. And I do believe that. But I know the biggest thing about him is he's a very honest person. He's a very honest man, almost to a fault. He's the guy that won't blow smoke. He won't tell you what you want to hear. He's going to be the guy on your committee that's going to tell you the truth. He's going to tell you why something won't work, but he's also going to give you the way it can work. He always is very solution-minded. He's done a lot of work in Freeport, a lot of work out at Shintech. He has been he started his first business when he was 19 years old in California, in San Diego. And he has owned a construction business until I actually wanted him to retire last year. But he still does a lot of work on our church, Souls Harbor, here in Freeport. We're very proud of Freeport. We love living in Freeport. I absolutely love living in the downtown. The only sad thing about the downtown is in the last 40 years that I've been downtown, I used to work at Bo's Army Navy store downtown when I was 19 years old. And to say I'm a couple of years past that is only kindness. It's just nothing changes. It's the same thing. And I just don't understand how you can get thrown. I didn't want him to get on the board, to be quite honest, because of all the shenanigans. Come on, people, we know Freeport has a lot of shenanigans going on a lot of times, and I was very reluctant for him to get on the board because he's a sensitive person, even though he might not appear that way, and I didn't want him to be put in a situation. I didn't want him to receive an email from Ms. Silbus the other night telling him that he was effectively being thrown off a board with no explanation, just because, and I'm not saying she might not have something, but why not tell him what it is? Why not explain? I'm with you, Mayor. I think I've been on many, many boards over the years. I have worked all my life. I worked at UTMB after Intermedics in Angleton. I actually served as the board secretary for the Angleton Hospital District Board. So I know Robert's Rules of Order backwards and forwards. But my thing is, a board should govern themselves, and you should be given a written notice as to what you've done so you can at least explain yourself. It may not change the outcome, but I think every single person that's on that board should be very afraid that what if next week you say something to somebody and your head's on the block? I just don't think that's fair or right. Besides, you're not being paid to be on this board. This is a volunteer thing. So why can't you be honest with the person and tell them what the infraction is, discuss it, and then go to your people and see.
Thank you, ma'am. Before I interrupt, I have a question for you. What did you do for Intermedics?
I was the executive assistant for the hospital CEO.
Okay, so that's what led you to UTMB after that?
Yes, I worked for Angleton Danbury. I worked there for just under 25 years.
Okay. Well, no, you remember the good times in downtown.
I do
before
remember.
Intermedics bought everything and made it homogeneous, but.
Well, they made it a good place, and you guys wouldn't give them the abatement. Well, and that was a silly, foolish move.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, I think I wrote 8 instead of 9.
You did write 8 instead of 9? Did you mean 9?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I was a little concerned when I read this on the agenda the other day, that this was happening to Bill. And I really don't know Bill that well, but I was here at the last meeting when he had a lot of good information that he was talking about. And I'm wondering here if this has anything to do with personalities instead of principles, because he was debating some things that Councilman George Matamore, some figures was talking about, and I hope that this did not rub into this consideration for him to be removed. He seems quite knowledgeable, and that's what we need, is somebody that has a lot of knowledge, that is able to have their input, because the way I read this and that email, it was kind of like if everybody's not less soldiers in line with the same thing, then this can happen. And I would like to know too, Ms. Anna, because you were starting to read about not his expectations or whatever, if you could explain that to us so I can get, or other people can get some clarity on that. But he seems like he's very knowledgeable and is the kind of person that we need on that type of a board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Oldham?
Hello, Melanie Oldham. Well, actually, I am on the Historical Main Street Board. I'm one of the newer members. But end of last week, I got the email from Miss Anna about, I didn't understand exactly why, but that supposedly Mr. Leach wasn't meeting some standards and that it had to do with something that happened maybe or said at the visioning session. I was there at that session, and there was 4 different tables we went to, and I heard it all for some frustration. Talked about again, past history. It seems like, as far as downtown, this discussion has been going on for a long time. For instance, when I first moved here 15 years ago, my daughter and I rented out the building that was Lucy Goose. At that time, there was flooding from the back alley, the mold, mildew, and here we are 15 years later, and that basic thing hadn't been taken care of. I think that our Historical Main Street Board is going to meet Thursday this week at 5 o'clock, and I think we need to understand why or who is upset about something that was said, and Mr. Leach should have an opportunity to talk, and then we decide. I think as a committee, we need to hear all, and I think it's okay for open discussion and different ways of approaching things. But he is a contractor, and I actually listened about that 208 building downtown. I think he has something to contribute, but I also would like to hear what upset somebody so much that they requested that y'all remove him.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Anna, will you come back, please?
Would you like me to start from the beginning again?
Whatever you'd like to, lady.
So just so we can all be on the same page again, staff is requesting the City Council to consider the removal of William Leach from the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board due to failure to uphold board member expectations and responsibility. Currently, Mr. Leach is serving a 2-year term, which expires on May 31st, 2025. The recent behavior of a board member has warranted some concerns about board membership. The board members' behavior has become a detriment to the progress of the Freeport Main Street program. As Main Street Coordinator, I have recently received some concerns regarding Mr. Leach's behavior, most recently at the Community Visioning Session hosted by the Freeport Historical Commission in partnership with the Freeport EDC. The Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Board, with all board member appointments, they do suggest replacements for any board positions bring diversity in the areas of race, age, and professional expertise to be reflective of our community and support the mission of the Freeport Main Street program.
All right.
And I will entertain any questions.
Councilor, do you have any questions for Ms. Silvas?
I don't have a question, but I would like to make a statement real quick. Ms. Silvas, I appreciate the fact that you brought this to us. Okay, we have a lot of boards in the city, and in the little over 4 years that I've been on council, I've seen a lot of dysfunction on a lot of the boards that we have. Unfortunately, in the past, the different boards have allowed the dysfunction to continue, okay, instead of trying to do something to stop it. So I appreciate what you're trying to do. However, I have to personally think I kind of leaning towards the way the mayor says. Let's take it to the board itself, and if they have a unanimous or at least half say yes, this is what we do, then I'd be more leaning towards voting for it.
All right, do we have anybody else like to make a comment? If not, I will move to table this item. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Councilman Pena. This item is tabled, which would include item number 8 as well.
That one, number 8, is for Mr. Jack Bullman's resignation.
Okay, very good. Then I stand corrected. Consideration of possible, item number 8, consideration of possible, thank you, Councilman. Consideration of possible action approving resolution number 2024-2854, appointing a member to the Freeport Historical Commission and Main Street Advisory Board. This is the replacement for committee member Jack Bullman.
Jack Bullman, yes, sir.
All right.
During this time, we did only receive one application, and that was from, I know on here it says Jesse Glatz, but it was actually Lucy Martinez. We just recommend either selection of an individual. I also know that board appointments are coming up here soon in May as well, so with only one applicant, it would depend fully on council as to what decision you guys would like to move forward with this.
All right, I will move to appoint Lucy Martinez to the remainder of her term. She'll be up in May of this year?
It'll be May 2025.
2025, so she'll have a year and a half, a year, okay. All right, so I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Madam Morris. Any further discussion?
I have a couple of questions, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Is Ms. Martinez here this evening?
She is not able to attend today.
Okay. Has she attended any of the meetings for the historic Main Street?
She actually attended our community visioning session. She was one of the only residents to attend. We did reach out to her. She talked about the programming that we did, and she enjoyed it. I know her family enjoyed it. So she did fill out an application.
And when did Mr. Bowman submit his resignation?
To my knowledge, if I can remember on the email, I believe it was March 14th.
And has this position been advertised?
Yes, on our Facebook page. And I share also in the, I believe now it's the residents of Freeport.
Was this on the city Facebook page as well?
They share it as well.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions?
Actually, one last question. Is Ms. Martinez a resident of Freeport?
Yes, she is for 63 years.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, so I will call the question and ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, ma'am. Item number 10, consideration and possible action approving ordinance number 2024-2727 to update the city loitering ordinance 30-77. Chief Howe.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening.
I had mentioned probably a month or two ago regarding updating our ordinance on loitering. It was originated in 1966, hasn't been updated since 1996. Trying to go through some different ordinances, get us into the 21st century, if you will. And so this was one of the changes and everything that I talked to y'all about, to be able to, if we have some closed businesses, individuals, sometimes loitering in the parking lots, teenagers or even sometimes adults gather there at late hours. Officers do stop out to make contact, but unfortunately, unless they have the business owner at that time, they don't have any grounds to be able to push those individuals on from loitering at a closed business. So That was the update for the ordinance that we're proposing.
Chief, under under section 30.77, loitering prohibited, loiter, it says includes the following activities: standing, sitting, laying, the walking about aimlessly without apparent purpose. The walking, is that supposed to be the walking or just walking?
Probably should actually be walking about.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Council, do you have any questions for the chief? No questions?
I have a couple of questions, Mayor. Just want to make sure that everybody else had any. The loitering ordinance, is that strictly parks or any, you said businesses as well?
No, this could be any business, Shipley's, Concentra, just any business that if the business is closed and that business isn't current in operating hours, if you will, and individuals go to kind of hang out there in the parking lot, then officers can then make contact and say, hey guys, we have a city ordinance. If the business is closed, you can't be here.
Does that include over here by the root beer stand and also the mystery?
That would include any business in the city.
Have we been experiencing a problem with loitering
And
as
so-
a whole?
Yes, and currently officers will stop out and make contact. But then as far as like, if they stop out to make contact, you're not required to identify yourself. So they don't have any identifying information, then they can, say, guys, maybe it might be a good idea if you go somewhere else, but we have no grounds to be able to tell people to go somewhere else. And then if something happens later where a business owner calls and says, my glass got busted out, looks like a rock hit it, we weren't able to identify those individuals to be able to have any leads for them.
So this will allow everybody to be identified by law enforcement? So that, to allow law enforcement to ask that question?
And so when they stop out and everything to make contact, they can advise them then about the no loitering. And then if they continue to not go ahead and go, then at that point, they have grounds to start moving forward.
I was just curious what the protocol was, and then in terms of people's rights for displaying their identity. Do we have any concerns on that from Olson & Olson?
No. David reviewed and okayed everything with Chief.
All right. This doesn't affect any of their Miranda rights or anything like that?
No, like I said, it would just be making that initial contact and then getting those individuals to move on, where right now, we can't. We can just advise them, and then they just continue to loiter there, hang out at parking lots for all hours of the night sometimes.
Yeah, what I'm concerned with is that then we'd have the next meeting, a whole bunch of residents and or folks that are accused or I guess accused of loitering, and then they come in here saying that they were harassed, and I just want to make sure we're crystal clear on that so that the public knows if, that we're trying to make the community safer, but also what that protocol is. Is it my understanding then that the police officers, the patrolmen will approach anybody that's loitering and just ask them to leave?
We're going to be starting off with education like we do anything else.
Okay.
It's just starting off with educating the public. Of course, we'll push it out on social media, but the officer, it's not like we're going to go out writing tickets left and right or
Right.
anything or arresting people over this. It, again, is just going to start with educating everyone.
And is the lead question, can you please move, or is the lead question, identify yourself?
No, the lead question and everything is actually just going to be, again, education.
Okay.
It's just going to, hey, guys, we didn't know if you knew, but, the city has an ordinance on any of the businesses that are closed. You can't loiter in the parking lot after hours.
Yeah, I like the good reputation that our police department is afforded today, and I want to maintain that as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chief.
So what about a bed, a blow-up bed at Antonelli's? Is that loitering?
That would be loitering as well.
Okay.
Actually, it would also even constitute to fall under camping for the Penal Code of Camping.
All right, any other discussions? And I will, if approved, I will sign this with that one correction. Okay. So is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 10.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Kane. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a second from Councilman Morris. Any further discussion needed? not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, you have your permission.
Thank you.
Number 11, consideration and possible action on the approval of the Windstorm insurance policy renewal. 2 times in one night.
It kind of threw me right in. Okay, the city has two, let me move this over a little bit. Okay, the city has 2 windstorm insurance carriers for the various locations of the city. And we received the renewal of the windstorm insurance through ICAT for the golf course, River Place, and the FMP kitchen. The cost of the coverage increased by approximately $20,000 at the current deductible of 1% to the total of $57,793.34. That's due to the fact that the insurance is based off the current replacement cost of the structures, which have obviously increased dramatically based off the increased construction cost. The increase in cost can be covered by the current budget for the insurance because, because it was projected and increased in the fiscal year 24. Victor Insurance Managers works with Texas Municipal League, IRP, and the carriers each year to bring the city insurance coverage. They did have ICAT submit 3 proposals for windstorm insurance this year, and the options were based on the deductible amounts. The staff recommends staying with the current deductible of 1%. When there's a named storm, this is actually the only insurance coverage that the city has available if we have damages.
Do we have this increase available in our budget?
Yes.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions?
Why do we have 2 windstorm carriers? Is that typical?
I can verify with Kathy, but I do know that she told me when we get a named storm, the only person that we're gonna receive any type of compensation from is just Windstorm.
I had worked with some of the fixed assets before we moved them over to finance. Texas Windstorm Insurance Association, whatever, TWIA, will not cover all our buildings, so that's why ICAT covers some of them. So that's why we have 2 carriers.
That makes sense.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, if not, I will move to approve the recommendation of the city council, of our city administration, with the understanding that this is going to be, according to meteorologists, a very exciting year for us. So hopefully we won't have to use this. So I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilman Morris. Any further discussion needed? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The next item is is our work session. City council may deliberate and make inquiry into any items specifically listed as subsection under the itemized sections A through F below. Councilman Pena, Ward A.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody that came out to speak on behalf of the city's interest and, for that matter, residents for agenda item 8 and 9. I wanted to touch on the fact that Riverfest is coming up, but I'll touch on that here in a second. I wanted to touch on Mr. Sam Reyna's comment that the contract selection, I want to make sure that we, in fact, do have a clearly defined that enhances transparency for the procurement process of any and all contracts that the city should engage in going forward, and I'd like to see that in the next meeting or the one after here, at least before we try to select any additional contracts. And I've been maintaining that the selection or the review committee should be a collection of residents and city staff, but after thinking about it and formulating, the idea of the risk behind that in terms of in terms of the sealed bid process, I almost want to say that, I do want to say that I think it's maybe a better idea that we turn over the selection process to a third-party law firm. I think law firms will probably be less likely to be compromised than anybody else because they have their licenses to be considered. And so I wanted to make sure I followed up on that statement there Mr. Arena had brought up. The second thing I want to mention was that, at the last meeting, we talked about, there was a question was asked by Ms. Dancy about the update to the investigation with Covarrubias, and I would like to request yet again a public statement from City Hall staff as to what that status update is, both a verbal one here tonight if that's affordable, and or a formal one here that can be posted on our city website and Facebook page. Also, I wanted to get clarification when the large trash removal is going to be. Mr. Petty, large trash, when the
wards are set up for, you talking about the community cleanup?
Yeah.
That is this Saturday.
This coming Saturday?
No, the 27th, I'm sorry, from 8 to noon.
That's Sunday?
That's a Saturday. It'll be located at 200 West 2nd Street.
Next to City Hall. And then also Riverfest, one of the questions I received was, is Riverfest still also receiving applications for booths for the event?
Yes, sir.
They are? All right. That's for both vendors and I guess just any public booths?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. And then last but not least, I'd like to make sure that before we go into executive session that I'm afforded the opportunity to make the motion for additional security. Thank you.
Councilman Kane, Ward B.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank everybody that showed up tonight. And once again, especially those that have the courage to come up and speak. It's not an easy task. As many people know, and some may not know, Captain Gilchrist has announced his retirement. And I think, I want to give a shout out to Captain for over 30 years of service of working as a police officer in the city of Freeport. Thank you for your service. Other than that, Mayor, I want to remind everybody that early voting starts the 22nd, which is right around the corner. It'll be Monday. There's 6 names on the ballots, so let's get out there and vote. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thanks, sir. Councilman Matamoros, Ward C.
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank all the residents and visitors who attended in person and viewed online. Thank you to those residents who spoke during citizens' comments and agenda items. Jerry stole my thunder. I was going to also wish Captain Gilchrist a happy retirement and thank him for the many years of dedicated service to our city. I am looking forward to some great events also with Riverfest and those boat races. Our citywide garage sale, which is happening this weekend, and citywide cleanup the following weekend. There are some things that I have noticed with our city as I've been driving around. One of those items is the cleanliness of the city. And driving around, I'm gonna get on my soapbox just a little bit. And driving around, I do notice that we have some deficiencies with our garbage pickup. But what I also notice is the lack of respect by our residents who will just drive down the street and throw their garbage on the street, a McDonald's bag or another bag. We need to take pride in our city. If we don't do it, nobody else will. We can go and complain, bring up concerns about our trash service, but if we don't do it ourselves, it's not going to be done. So with that being said, I am going to bring some issues that I've seen and I've taken pictures of to you, Lance, of our trash service, and I'll be bringing those this weekend, or this week. Last thing I'm looking forward to is this week, Phillips 66, we will be having our golf tournament at the Freeport Golf Course this Thursday and Saturday. If I'm not mistaken, I think we filled it up those 2 days. And so this will be the second year in a row that our tournament will be held at the Freeport Golf Course. It's just proven that our golf course, with the work from Brian and his team, is a hidden gem that should be highlighted whenever we get a chance. And I'm looking forward to this tournament. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. City Manager Petty.
Just reiterate, the community cleanup, April 27th from 8 to noon. It'll be held at the old City Hall. It's being abated right now. This Saturday is the citywide garage sale. And, of course, Riverfest. If you hadn't been out there, it's a free event. It's really wonderful event that we put on. There's a lot of good vendors out there, bands. The boats are there. We have fireworks. So everybody come out and enjoy yourselves. And then real quick, we had a Public Works employee that retired last week as well. He had been here 20 years, and his name was John Steig. If you ever been out to the beach and seen him on the front end loader, he was our John Beach, we called him. So hopefully we got somebody to step in that role and keep the beach up nice and clean, but we'd like to wish him a happy retirement as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going into executive session regarding, I'm sorry, that's right, we do need to make a motion. Yes, sir, Councilman Pena.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, I'd like to make a motion to include Chief Howell in executive session for additional security. That's my motion, and I'm hoping that
Okay,
council will.
is there a
will
second
oblige.
to Councilman Penis's motion? Is there a second? Hearing none, motion failed. I do make a motion to allow City Manager Lance Petty into executive session. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Executive session regarding personnel matters. Number one is update on investigation into complaints filed against Councilman Pena's pursuant to Section 551.074. B, deliberations about real property, discuss Freeport 19 LLC Maddox properties pursuant to Section 551.072. Folks, it's
Real
now-
clever, Bass.
it's
Real
now-
clever with
it's
your
now at
your
7
trick of
excuse me,
words.
sir. Now at 7:14.
Let the video show how
We're
much
going
class
to
you don't
executive
have.
session. Excuse me?
You know exactly what you did, and you're not funny.
What?
I'll be replaying this video of you.
What?
You and your bombastic comments and your inflammatory language. That's why I ask, have you stopped beating your wife?
Mm.
I don't need a comment. Yep. This is not on the agenda. I think we're going into executive session.
Nah, we can talk
You're more
about
than
it.
welcome to meet with
Come
me
on up.
outside.
Come
You're
on
more
up.
than welcome to meet outside. Here we go. This is a violation of the open meetings, and I expect
No, it's
Olson
not.
Olson to do something about it.
My name is
because this is not on the
Margaret Bachman. I
agenda.
reside at
No, it's
96
not.
The mayor's just
Dolphin
gonna
Lane.
allow it to
She's
go
a
Mr.
through.
citizen,
Pena.
excuse me, sir, she's a citizen comment, wants to make a comment. We're not in executive session.
No, you just called
She
it.
has 4 minutes to make it.
You just called it.
We're not in it yet.
You're violating
My
it.
name is Margaret Bachman. I reside at 96 Dolphin Lane in Freeport, Texas. And Mr. Pena, I find your flippant comment about spousal abuse to be very offensive and very.
Did you find anything that he had to say
No, I am
offensive?
talking to-
Well, I can speak here.
Would you
I'm
let her
gonna
speak,
I'm
please?
gonna
Would you
allow
let her,
myself-
would you let her speak, sir?
Am I allowed to defend
No,
myself
you,
and comment?
not at this point, no.
Why
You're,
not? This is not the
Chief,
citizen comment. The comment.
if
this
he
is just
says
regular.
another word, I'd like him removed from council. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have grown up in a situation where there was physical and emotional abuse. I find your comments to be flippant. I find them to be
Look at this guy.
very derogatory. I find them to be very disrespectful to people that actually are in fear of their life, people that are in fear every day for their life.
I am in
For
fear.
those women and those people that live in situations like that, I find it very disrespectful.
When you
and
get
I
attacked
wish-
by the
Excuse
mayor,
me,
you'll
Councilman
understand.
Pena, you've got to be quiet, sir. Thank you. Are you leaving? Okay. Chief, would you go ahead
I'll fill
and,
my-
no, Chief, I would like you to escort him out, please, ma'am. Chief, escort him outside the building. Chief, escort him outside the building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
No, I'm done.
You found that offensive as well?
No, I find him offensive.
Uh.
I find it derogatory and demeaning to people that live in situations where they are actually in fear for their life, for him to make flippant comments. I find it offensive. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Now we're going into executive session regarding A, personnel matters, update on investigation into complaints filed against Councilman Pena pursuant to section 551.074. You may want to stick around for that one. Deliberations about real property, discuss Freeport 19 LLC Maddox properties pursuant to section 551.072.